All right, Bow Disciples 3 here in SoCal, James Visser shooting events. Kind of fun because my good buddies from Arizona came over, the Maddock family, and I've been trying to get Tim Maddock on with me for like 2 years now, but he's just too cool to come on my podcast. So I tied him down and said, Tim, let's do a podcast together while we're sitting here. And most of you guys probably don't know Tim. But if you love Coues deer, you probably don't love him as much as Tim.
Probably not.
And Tim probably has killed as much, if not more, Coues deer than most people have ever killed in their lifetime. He's a big Coues deer killer. He has an obsession with Coues deer. And Tim you go to Tim's house and the wall is covered in deer. So Tim, we're talking about the Lord's deer today.
We are. Best deer in the world.
Best deer in the world. When did you kill your first ghost?
You know, I've been hunting them for, I want to say, about 25 years now. First one I killed was in Arizona. I don't know the exact year. I know Cade had been born. Cade was born in 2000, so it would probably be 01, 02, somewhere back in there.
That's when you killed your first
My
Coues
first
deer?
Coues deer.
Really? That late?
Yeah, I did not kill a Coues deer in my youth. I didn't do it until I was an adult. And my idea was that I had kind of given up on some of the more difficult to draw mule deer hunts in Arizona, the Kaibab, the strip, that type of thing. I wanted to go hunting every year, and you could still do that with Coues deer back in the day. And so I drew a Unit 31 December Coues deer tag, and I went hunting in Unit 31 and killed a 101-inch buck, my first time ever Coues deer hunting, and it's just a full-blown addiction after that.
Well, I mean, you're not that old, so I mean, you're early 20s at that point. I mean, you're 23, 24 years old at this point, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't that, I guess, you kind of started, it's still early.
Early, but I wasn't a teenager.
You weren't a teenager. It wasn't like my kids who were hunting Coues deer since they were 12, or your boys who hunted Coues deer since they were 6.
Yeah.
Whatever. But, and I mean, honestly, to this day, you still can draw Coues deer tags in Arizona and New Mexico pretty much every year.
Some units, yes. And, it's like anywhere. The quality units, they're going to get drawn out first. And some of the more easier to draw units aren't going to have as high a trophy quality or the best, rut hunting times, that type of thing. But, yeah, there's places you can draw almost every year, every year. As
an out-of-state guy, there's some units, like the southern units, you can hunt pretty much every year, but it's going to be an October tag, and you're probably looking at a 90s class buck. I mean,
if that,
high 80s, 90s class buck, a good deer, respectable deer. You can get your 3-bys in there, you get some good bucks, but nothing crazy. And you do have some better units in there, like 23 and stuff, but it's going to take you a lot more points. Like I actually have, I think, 13 deer points right now in Arizona, and I'm half tempted to burn them on like a 23 or something and go hunt the late season tag. But at the same time, I can go to Mexico 2 weeks later and actually get a real rut hunt and do it. And it's just like, I don't want to burn them. Right.
And it's you just have to weigh it out and balance it out. What are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? And, the caliber of deer. October hunts aren't always the worst thing in the world.
No.
A lot of times if you have the time to go do your preseason scouting, you can find them when they're still bachelored up and in that summer routine and go right into their bedrooms and get them killed. Some of the biggest deer in the state are killed that way every year. But it takes a lot of, preseason work in order to do that. Busy guy like you may not have the time to do that. And, a rut hunt is a little better in maybe that scenario where you can just show up and have deer that are cruising through these areas during the rut or pre-rut.
Unless I lived in Arizona, precursor to something that might be happening next year. I don't want to fully say it, but somebody might be making the switch to Arizona.
Arizona's God's state, so
it is God's state. So I can say this. So yes, there is that chance to do the rut hunt, and you get to see more deer. But the biggest deer in the state are killed every year, typically in that August archery hunt or that early October hunt, because these guys are scouting them all summer and finding them, because those bucks don't move. Like you could find them within that 500-yard circle of Coues deer, and they're going to be in that 500-yard circle until that rut, right? They're going to kind of be in there. They might travel to water a mile every 3 days or something, 2 days, but they're going to be generally, if you can find them, you can kill them. But the problem with Coues deer is, even though you found them, you might look at the same hill for 3 days until you see them.
And they're on that same hill for 3 days, in the shade, in the shadows, and in the thick stuff, and they just don't come out to show themselves, to get themselves killed. So you got to just put in the effort and have the patience to stare at the same place over and over and over and again for days on end.
And Coues deer are the reason why we have TRICER, because I love looking for, of all deer, there is nothing more rewarding than finding a Coues deer in his bed in the middle of the day. I tell people all the time, like, you glass from, like, people talk like the morning because they're up and they glow, right? But man, you find that deer at like 1 o'clock and you're like, gotcha.
And that's what you have to do to find these big bucks, is look into the shade in the middle of the day. A lot of times they're not up in the morning or in the evening glowing. They're getting up in the middle of the day to change beds. They might not even move out of their bed. They might stand up and turn around or move 3 feet to stay in the shadow, and you're just catching a little piece of a deer. And you're right, TRICER gives us the tripods and the flexibility and the comfortability.
The micro panning was built for Coues deer.
Absolutely.
It was built for Coues deer because, like when I first made it, I called Cody Nelson. I was with Cade, your son, on a hunt, and I was like, I called Cody Nelson, and I was like, I just changed the game. Like, it's like I found so much deer because I was going so slow. But I can tell you, like, the majority of the big bucks I find are from that kind of like that 11 to 2 window, because they stand up for just long enough. You might get 5 minutes on their feet, stand up. Sometimes you just stand up and turn around. But a lot of times you get them up for the middle of the day. You might get 5 to 15 minutes of this kind of milling around in like a 10-foot circle, eating a little bit, and then lay back down. And that's when you have to find them. To the point now where I carry eye drops in my binocular harness because I will glass all day long, because I know that if I'm not looking through the glass, I'm missing deer in the middle of the day, because that's when those big bucks, they stand up and they make that little, because the sun shifts and they have to get up. So they don't want, imagine like, we're sitting here right now, it's shaded, but like every once in a while the sun keeps burning through and I almost want to take my jacket off. You know what I mean? And that's a deer, but they can't take their jacket off. So that sun starts hitting them and they got to get up. And they never really, sometimes they do kind of dig, you get up and sit down. Most of them, they kind of get up in the middle around for a few minutes and then get back down. And that's when I find a lot of them. Other than, you do find them bedded as well, but man, you're looking for a tail flick. You're looking for an antler, and everything looks like a freaking Coues deer.
But that's early season. Which that's the challenge with the October, November hunts. And they're hard to find, and you get it in your blood, and there's just nothing that's better. It's
the biggest chess match you've ever played with an animal. Like, I'm telling you, like that buck I shot with you guys this year in Mexico, the Coues deer have a way to freeze and not move. And like I've watched deer sit for an hour and not flinch. And not even know I'm there. And they just stand there. So like that buck I shot with you, he knew I was there. I should tell a story, I guess. So we were with Shed Crazy. We're all down hunting with the Maddock guys down in Mexico. A bunch of us all in, and I was with you. And Ben missed a javelina like 4 times, like 400 yards. He's like, my gun's off, and I'm like, I don't think your gun's off, Ben. I think it was just running javelina. Right, we're shooting off the trees, and we were just doing, And so I'm like, let's just go back to the house. It's midday. Let's go bring my target out. I have some steel plates so we can stand up, real quick, and we can shoot it. And so we're like, well, we don't want to blow everyone else's hunt. So like, we'll go right here because we're not going to blow the boys, because we didn't know where the boys were, but we knew they were. We thought they were a lot further than they were. So we set the target up 100 yards, and Ben just freaking pinwheels this target twice. It's still there, the copper on my target. He stacked 2 copper bullets. And here come the boys. When I say the boys, it's Connor and Cade, Tim's kids, running down the street, and they're like, did you get him? Did you get him? And me and Ben are like the most unserious people in the world, so we get along so well. And we're like, yeah, we got him. We're high-fiving, and we had no idea what happened. Well, I guess we stood this buck up that the boys thought was like a mid-90s buck. We found out later after I killed him it wasn't, but it was mid-80s buck. He's a good buck. But when we shot that target, the ping, ping, it stood this deer up, and he started running.
Yep.
So they're like, he's up here. And then so they're like, well, we're going to go this way. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go up this draw here and hope I can cut him off. And I'm walking up, and I was thinking they were going to kill the buck the way they went. Because they kind of, I don't know, I just had a hunch. Like if I go this way, sometimes you get a hunch, right? And my hunch was right this time.
Yep.
But I walk up, and I'm like, holy crap, there's that buck at 290 yards, frozen, because he saw me. And he just thinks if he stands still enough, I'm not going to see him.
And most of the time they can.
And that buck, most of the time they can. Because there's times where I'll glass a buck up standing, look over, hit him, I got a buck, and look back, and I can't see the deer for 5 minutes, and he's standing in the same spot.
Right.
And so I'm like looking at this buck, and I'm like, oh, man, if you're still standing there, and I knew at this point, I'm like, he's not the buck we thought he was going to be, but I'm like, if you're still standing there, when I take my backpack off, I'm going to shoot you. Put my backpack down. He's still standing there. I'm like, okay, if you're still standing there when I get prone on the new RP bipod, I'm going to shoot. I got down prone, and I put it through bush rollers and dropped him where he stood. And but we call him the target buck. Even though he wasn't our target buck, we call him the target buck. It was just too good of a story not to have that story, and we killed him. But that deer stood. I've never seen an animal that won't even flex a muscle.
Yeah. That's how I had one this year on water that a buck, nice buck, came up over a berm, and he stood there for an hour and a half, and I'd record him for 5 minutes and then stop and record him for 5 minutes, and he just stood there for an hour and a half looking out over this represso, this dirt tank, and finally some does came in the other side, and he watched them for about 30 minutes, and then he finally just trotted off and went the same way as the does. But
didn't even come into the water.
Never came into the water.
He was just checking the water.
Just checking. He was using the water as a social gathering area. It was during the rut, but they don't have to move. They don't necessarily move a lot. They can, but they can sit there statue still for hours on end if they need to.
So one thing I'd say about Coues deer is when they do move, it's over. A lot of times when they move, it's like 3 canyons of moving. Like once the tail goes up, like your gig is up. Like a mule deer, I don't want to say they're dumb. I mean, they're definitely not as smart as Coues deer. A mule deer that's like less than 5 is probably going to give you a look back.
Yeah.
Some of the older bucks are just going to be gone. But like a Coues deer, once that tail goes up, they're not looking back. They're not stopping. They are bouncing and bouncing and bouncing until they are, a mile away, gone.
3 ridges over.
3 ridges over. I always say 3 ridges is the word I always use.
Well, like the bucks when we were driving into camp. Remember the couple of bucks that we bumped? Yeah. And I think, didn't they start off at maybe 150, 200 yards away? And, there's how many? 8, 10 of us sitting on the side of the road in our trucks.
Looking at these deer, yeah.
Looking at these deer. Nobody's being quiet. And as soon as they realized what we were, they bounced, and not one of them ever stopped again after that. So they'll go, and they'll keep going and going and going. You got to be quick when you're after them. You can't give them time to, if they're rutting especially, you can't give them time to move and work their way away, because like you're saying with a mule deer, they're different. They don't behave the same. They don't just lollygag around and sit there and look back at you and those kind of things. They're gone. There
is nothing better though, than because like you said, they are still right. Like I've had deer where I bedded them in a bush, got 100 yards from the bush, laid there for 3 hours, and then stood up because I was convinced they weren't in the bush, and then blew the deer out. Mm-hmm. Multiple times I've done this.
Yeah.
2 times in particular, and I've known now, like if I see a deer go into a bush, he is still in that bush.
Yes, and then there's also the exact opposite of that. You stare at that bush, and you sit there and you tell your buddies that, hey, he went into that bush, and there's no way he can get out of that bush without us seeing him. So keep watching the bush, and all of a sudden, 3 hours later, you realize he's 300 yards away, and somehow he snuck out of the bush.
Yeah, so without you even seeing him, just moving.
They're ghosts. They're there half the time, and they move and get away the other half the time. So it's a challenge.
I swear, this is another real life me screwing up hunting story. I screw up more than I'm successful. I was with my boys. Most of my Coues hunting is my boys hunting. Because it's harder for me to draw tags and not to burn points. Until I start going to Mexico, but I find this buck. It's middle of the day, like 2:00. He's pushing a doe, and And I'm like, oh, there's a buck. Let's go after this buck. And it was probably about 1,000 yards to get to where he was. So we get over there, and I'm like, I know he's in this draw. We move up, and we're like 100 yards. And I'm like, oh, there's the does. There's a doe and a fawn right here.
Right.
And I swear to you, we sat there for an hour, and we're 100 yards away from a bunch of yellowgrass, which is like, they love yellowgrass. And yellowgrass and scrub oaks. You find yellowgrass and scrub oaks, you're going to find Coues deer, right? You get up to a certain amount of elevation, 3,000 or 4,000 feet in Arizona, you're going to find deer in those desert units. And I swear we're sitting there. I'm like, he's got to be in there. I'm like, let's just move over 10 feet. Move over 10 feet. 15 deer stood up.
Yeah.
And I only saw 2 or 3 deer, and 15 deer stood up and blew out of that thing. And I'm like, where the heck were you for the last hour? I mean, right in my face. You know what I mean?
And 15 or 18 inches of yellow grass.
And you didn't even see them. I mean, they were, we could have maybe been 100 yards from these deer. And and I blew them out of there. And they were gone. Buck saw the buck. I've got like a 12-year-old with me. You're never going to get a crosshair on the thing fast enough, right? Nor do you want to. But, yeah, man. All right, so you've got the bug. It's 2,000. You kill your 101, which is like anything over 100 in Arizona is pretty damn good. Really good, really good. A 100-inch buck in Arizona is really good.
Right.
When do you make your first trip south?
Well, a few years later, I don't remember. It was probably 4 or 5 years later, and I had the bug. I had actually gone back and killed another buck in Arizona that wasn't as good as my first one. Still a 90-inch buck, but I had the bug, and I wanted to continue to go out and progressively do better and better as a Coues deer hunter. And I booked a hunt with an outfitter in Mexico, and I went with him, and I actually went 3 years in a row. The first 2 years I didn't shoot awesome deer, shot okay deer, but I had this driving, feeling that I wanted to keep going back for bigger and bigger and bigger. I killed a 101. I wanted that 110, that even 105, 108, 110, 113. And so I went with this outfitter, and I hunted with him. On the third year, I finally killed a 113 with him, which was now my second biggest deer. And now I've got not just the Coues deer bug, but I've got the Mexico Coues deer bug. And that was 22, 23 years ago when I first went to Mexico. And, it progressed and progressed. And finally it just got to the point where I wanted to continue to go to Mexico, but I didn't want to do it through guides and outfitters. I knew the process. I knew how to do the paperwork. I knew how to, come and go across the border. I knew what I needed to do to kill or to clean my skull caps and hides and that type of thing. And so I wanted my own ranch. And ultimately, that's what I did. And that's where the whole Mad Hunts deal started, was going and getting my own ranch. And I started bringing Kate and Connor down when they were young. My other son Corbin, who's not involved in the business, but I started bringing them down to Mexico as
Corbin's the best guide you have. I mean, I hunted with Corbin, and we killed a 108 within like 3 minutes of being in the blind. I mean, me and Corbin killed a few things together. We had fun.
Yeah, Corbin is great. He loves to hunt. He doesn't like to do it on like a competitive level. He likes to go hunting when he wants to, and if he doesn't go today, well, maybe I'll go tomorrow. And so sometimes he's on, sometimes he's off. And
he's not a psychopath like the boys.
Kate and Connor are psychopaths. They're just like me with
Coues deer.
They're addicted, and Kate and Connor try to be competitive with me. And any good father, I want them to kill bigger bucks than I've killed. But they think that somehow it's competitive, and it's like, no, I want you to kill. I really legitimately want you to kill a bigger buck than me. But they're competitive with each other, as you know. They're competitive with you. They're competitive about just Coues deer and finding big bucks, and just having great opportunities and good family time.
It is. I joke around all the time. Like, we're a team, right? When we go out in class together, but like, you always want to find the first deer. Like, you always want to find the first deer. You always want to find the biggest deer. Like, it's just fun. Like, I was talking to Cody Nelson about this. I'm like, there's something about, like, yes, you got some of your friends, but like, something about like first buck, first deer, got him, over here. And then like finding them, like, cause you are looking, but you're all working together too. Cause it's such a team. Coues deer is a team sport. Like you can't now, it is on the drinkers, which we're gonna talk about. You guys kind of like the specialists of the drinkers.
Yeah.
But like from a glassing spot and stock standpoint, your partner is just as important as the hunter. Because if you have a guy who gets out of the glass, your hunt's done. Like they have to stay in the glass for 3-4 hours. A lot of them using a radio. It's legal. Mm-hmm. He's in the bush.
Yep.
Move this way. Because like even like Arizona, even though it's open desert, it just doesn't look. We're finding these deer with these BTXs a mile away sometimes, right? And it just doesn't look the same when you get there. So you have to have a guy who you could really like talk to and you can communicate with, and he could tell you, like, he has to know what 100 yards looks like.
Yep. From
a mile away. He has to know, okay, you see that bush that has the Y-shaped Segura, and then it's got the pucker bush, and it's shaped like this, and there's a tombstone rock right here. He has to be able to communicate with you from a mile away and walk you in and stay in the glass.
Yep. You have to be able to point out those landmarks. You have to understand kind of each other, and you may not be sitting in the same position and have the same exact angle on something that I do. And so you might describe it as being left or right of a rock, but from my angle, it isn't left or right. It's straight behind it. Or, sometimes you say, oh, it's 50 yards from a rock. But when you're looking at a rock that's 1,000 yards away, is 50 yards 50 yards, or is it really 350 yards, and we're overestimating or underestimating what the actual distances are. So you have to be able to communicate that. You have to be able to, trust the guy that's behind the glass. If I'm the shooter,
you gotta trust the guy behind the glass.
I might leave you behind while I go in with a radio, and I've got to trust that, hey, you're just going to keep me in an earbud. You're going to keep talking to me and letting me know, okay, the buck is still bedded down. He's still there. Move to the left, move to the right. Stop. The buck's looking at you. You got to be able to have that communication and be able to trust the guys that you're working with for sure.
Oh yeah, we killed a buck in Arizona 2 years ago, and Cade was there, and I found this buck, and it was, it had to be a mile. It was a long stalk, and the whole time, like, we don't know. We went towards, and we had to go like four. It was like, what is it? I wouldn't call them ridges. They're like 100-foot ridges. Right. It's kind of like this. It's like this kind of this flat with like rolling
little finger ridges.
Ridge, and we were going through all his fingers. And like by the time we got over there, it's like we don't know where he is. He's kind of in this. And they're like, no, he's in this cut right here. They'll tell us, stay in the glass, stay on this rifle. He'll come across. He came across. Had a little bit of a circus with Isaac, but he shot him like 415 and got him down. Right.
Right.
It was a little bit. There might have been a couple shots that were pulled that day, but bottom line, the deer died. Yeah. But we wouldn't be able to do it without Cade staying back and like telling us, okay, you're good, stay there, drop, don't go any further.
Right.
Because we didn't know where he was at that point.
Right.
And it's legal. Do it.
Yeah.
It's legal. Do it. Run the guy in the glass. He has to be someone you trust is going to stay in the glass. If it's a guy out there who's going to be like running through his water, that's Tim's daughter or
my
granddaughter just ran through right here. So it's a family business. But you have to get your trust up there. So, but what you guys really, and you guys are just now starting to do some more of the spawn stock stuff in Arizona, but what you guys really are known for, what you are known for, Tim Maddock, is being like the king of water down there. I mean, you've killed very large deer, and you've done so by developing ranches and figuring these deer out in the flats, which is the hardest way to hunt these deer. It is in the flats, it's sitting water.
Yeah. And
not only sitting water, but sitting water for 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day in the heat.
Yeah.
You guys will do it for 10 days straight, and you guys will pass 105-inch deer, 115-inch deer to get to the 130-inch deer like you killed last year. So how did that start for you? Because you guys, when you first went down to the Maltos, you were hunting it like I hunt.
Yeah. I thought that we were going to hunt that ranch as a glassing ranch, and it had some finger ridges on it. It has some actually big mountains, but as you know, there's no deer on those mountains. They're thick as thick can be.
Not a lot.
Yeah, and so the deer don't go up onto the peaks. The deer stay down in the flats, on the little fingers and the little arroyos and in the cholla flats. And so what we had to learn to do was to hunt the deer where the deer are. And so we just, happenstance, every time we arrive in camp, we'd go look at the water holes, and we would see that they're tracked out. And so we knew that the deer were coming to the water, and pretty soon we just started to put trail cameras out and see what was there. And we discovered something that I think we already knew, but we sort of, had that aha moment in our minds that, these deer, they come to the water holes in the middle of the day. And everybody talks about Coues deer, and it's kind of a known thing that the bucks come to the water in the middle of the day, but how many people really put all their marbles in that basket?
I'm telling you, folks, 11 to 2 o'clock is the Coues deer hour.
Yeah.
It really is.
It 100% is. And so that first year we got 6 or 8 trail cameras, and we started to run these trail cameras, and we were finding some giant deer coming in during the day. And it progressed, and now we're running over 200.
6 or 8. I laugh at that now because you guys are psychopaths.
We have 6 or 8 cameras on a water hole. Just one water hole half the time. So we have water holes that have a dozen or 15 trail cameras on one represso, one dirt tank. And we run, if it's a good rain year and the water holes are all full, we'll run over 200 trail cameras in 1 year. And we just know if a buck comes into a water hole, it's only a matter of time before he comes back to that same water hole again. And so we full send it on that premise that if there's a buck that is a big buck that we want to shoot, he will come back to that water hole. And hopefully in that 5, 6, 7 day time period that we're there, and we've learned that if our butt is in the chair in a ground blind at that water hole, we're going to get an opportunity to kill him. And, most of the time we do. But the buck that you were after, for example, I hunted, that you killed 2 years ago.
You and Phil hunted him for 2 years each.
We hunted that buck for several years. I get them all mixed up now, but myself, Phil, we hunted that buck for at least 2 years. I think there was somebody else that hunted it in the meantime as well. But we have probably a grand total over several years of 30 or 40 days chasing that buck. So you killed it first day, second hour? Right at hour 2?
Right at hour 2. So we had this buck. Again, the cool thing about running these cameras, you really get to pattern these deer. And some of them are like once every 4 days, once every 5 days. Mm-hmm. This buck was like every day at 9 a.m. with a forky and with a 3x. And I go, hey, me and Connor are going to kill this buck at 9 a.m. Watch.
Yeah.
And we're out. And at this point, Phil Kramer, who's also one of the best Coues deer hunters out there.
Great person, great hunter.
An awesome guy. I love Phil. This buck is like, we're kind of hunting the edge of Phil's ranch as well.
Yeah.
And so this buck, 9 a.m., Connor's like, there he is. And he comes off of Phil's ranch onto your ranch. And 9 a.m., I just hammer this buck. And I actually set Phil a full tripod setup. Yeah. But Phil actually was like, dude, I'm glad someone got him.
Phil's a good guy.
Because I shot him on the downside. I shot my buck. He was, before, I shot him at 108. But he was like 118 the year before. He had another point, and he was just bigger because this buck was so elusive for so long. He actually got to a point where these bucks get so old on you guys' ranches down there that they start regressing.
He was regressing, yeah.
Yeah. And it was neat to see that, like, Phil's thing was like, man, and same thing with you, like, gosh, he's finally down. Because this buck could have, for all we know, just died of old age. It was so hard to kill him.
And we have that happen every year, that bucks disappear, that, whether they just get old and run down and a lion gets them, or whether they just die of old age, however that works in nature. But we have bucks every year that are giant bucks that, they never created an opportunity for us to realistically go after them. We try to go after the biggest bucks that are coming and creating opportunities for us to kill. If a buck sometimes is a ghost and it comes in once in November and then we don't see it again until, December 29th, and, he may just be cruising around and we never have a real opportunity to kill him. And that happens a lot. And then we have bucks that we watch them year after year, and maybe they're nocturnal, or maybe they come in November, beginning of December, and then I don't know where they move off to, but they sure don't show up on any of our cameras ever again, or until the next season. So we are constantly going after these deer and trying to find these new deer and these opportunity to get them. But sometimes deer just never give you an opportunity to kill them.
They say it, right? Big bucks don't get big because they're stupid.
They're certainly not.
And you guys you guys have do not shoot lists, which I know makes people pretty frustrated sometimes, right? Like, you guys have some 107, 108s that you guys won't shoot because you're like, no, he's only 3.
Yeah, and sometimes 2, but
Poor Kyle, dude. He's always crying and moaning. It's do not shoot list, do not,
Well,
but it's like, it's going to be a great buck, and like a 3-year-old 108's going to be a high teens buck. You don't want to kill that buck. A 5-year-old 108's probably going to be a 108. You know what I mean?
A 2-year-old 103, 105 is going to be a giant. So
yeah.
A lot of times we will only casually bring them up or casually show people pictures, and we won't even allow people to go over to those areas. We don't want to kill them prematurely. We want to let them reach that potential. And even at 4.5, the buck that Cade killed this year, he passed him as a 4.5-year-old buck, which in most people's minds is a mature buck. Even ours, he was a mature buck, but he just needed another year. And Cade killed him, and I think he's a 112-inch buck, and it's Cade's biggest buck. And we're thrilled for Cade, but Cade passed him up as a 3.5-year-old at like 105, and then as a 4.5-year-old, he was a 110-inch type of deer, and Cade just said, we're not even going to hunt him this year. And so nobody hunted him, and then this year he came back, and Cade, I think, killed him on day 3. And Cade's just excited as all get out.
Yeah, first year he's killed in like 4 years or something. So.
Oh man, yeah, he put out a video for it, but it was
he's a deer snob.
Cade,
yeah, he's a deer snob.
Well,
Cade's a deer snob.
You know what? When you've hunted Mexico for as long as we have,
you realize what you can get.
You just become a deer snob, and I try to only be a deer snob with myself, and not with you, for example, or with the general public or people that come through. I get such a huge opportunity to go kill these world-class deer every year, so I get to be snobbish about.
I've never seen so many big Coues deer in one room as your house. Let's throw it out there. Tim is the master of water, and Tim has more large Coues deer on his wall, and they're most beautiful deer too. I mean, Coues deer are so beautiful. They're so much prettier than mule deer. I mean, mule deer are like hairier and darker, and they got hair from other ears, and the Coues deer are just like elegant.
Yeah,
they're just beautiful.
They're pretty.
They're pretty, man. They got the short coat and just gray ghost, man.
But we're blessed to have the opportunity to go hunt them where we do on these ranches and do it year after year after year. So I get to be a little bit of a snob, but at the same time, when somebody that new is going with us, they've never killed one, they've never had the opportunity to kill a big one, or they're trying to kill a bigger one than their last one. I don't want to be a snob to them. Everybody's at a different level.
Everyone's different trophy. Yeah. One thing that was shocking to me is you guys don't hunt over feeders, which I was like, oh, they're going to hunt over feeders down here.
I've tried.
And you don't. You guys do hunt over water, and you guys have even made some of your own water. I killed my buck over water you made.
Yeah.
Down there on the Maltos. And what I'm shocked that these little whitetails don't love corn. They don't love protein.
I've tried. That same little drinker that you killed yours on, I put a little feeder on there. It was on a T-post, a little green feeder. It held 50 pounds of feed. We put alfalfa pellets. We put corn. We tried to see if we could get these deer to come into feeders, and they won't. I can pour it on the ground.
You're feeding javelina.
You are.
Feeding javelina.
I can pour the food right on the ground, and the deer will walk right past it to go to the water. They just don't care about the food. They've never been trained, so to speak, that corn is good to eat or alfalfa pellets are good to eat. So I tried it to see if we could do it, and some of the feeders have food in them for like 3 years, and it was going bad and moldy, and finally I just dumped it out and gave the feeders away to a buddy. And we don't use feeders. I don't know why they won't take to it, but some guys say that if you had more time, you could introduce like hay type of alfalfa.
I was going to say alfalfa might be a way to do it.
And that there's some ways, but I'm not down there 24/7 to be able to do that day in and day out. So, our ranches don't have feeders on them to this day because I just couldn't get it to work.
And the reason I say that is, like, I hunted Texas this year, and it was like a dinner bell. Like,
oh yeah.
And all of a sudden there's deer and oryx and zebras and all this crap coming in, javelinas, pigs. But in Mexico, like, it truly is, like, it's a real hunt.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going down and you're guaranteed a buck. Like, you could sit for a week and not kill a deer with these guys on water. If you're hunting, they also have open, like my jam is obviously glassing. I like it more.
Right.
I have ADD. I'm a psychopath in a blind. Like, you don't want me in a blind with you.
I know you have ADD.
But I find a lot of deer.
You do?
I find a lot of deer.
You do.
But it's a real hunt. Like, it's not like you're going down there guaranteed a deer. You're going to sit in this blind. And honestly, like, these chairs here that we're sitting there now, I was like, Tim, what chair should I buy? Because you get my blind chairs, they're not comfy. He's telling me to buy these, whatever these are, $120 sportsman's chairs, whatever they're.
Yep.
Because you're going to sit in this chair for 12 hours.
Yep. We like to get guys into their chair by about 6:45 into their blind, and they don't leave. Later in the season, it's shooting light all the way up to about 6:30 at night. So it's a 12-hour set. And we tell everybody that comes down to hunt with us, bring the best, most comfortable, silent chair that you can. If you just go buy a little, plastic Walmart chair for $15, then your butt's going to be paying for it throughout that day. So these actually they're not a square back chair. They're kind of got a rolled back to them, and they got a lot of padding in them. If you're rifle hunting, you can get away with a lot more noise than not that we want you to be noisy, but a little squeak and stuff in the chair doesn't seem to bother them. And most of the time, rifle hunting, we're sitting back 50 to 70 yards is where we kind of like to be. So we've got a little bit of room for a squeak or two here or there.
In a blind. Almost always in a blind when you guys are hunting.
Pop-up ground blinds. That's how we do it in the bushes. And
I was shocked that it didn't. I mean, they kind of. I mean, there's a few where I hunted them and they kind of would look at it, but I was shocked how lenient they were with a blind.
Well, if people watch the YouTube video of you hunting your buck in Mexico, talking to Corbin, he'll tell the story to me and Cade and Connor that you and him never stopped talking the entire morning, and so that goes to show that you can actually get away with quite a bit more, because you guys were laughing and joking.
We were having a good time. We were having a good time, and they're having fun.
And it's usually not until that 9 o'clock time when the deer start to come in.
That's what I want to talk about too.
And you guys were kind of right up to that threshold, and it just so happened your buck came in at 9. But you guys were kind of having a good time in there. And in fact, somebody here at the show just a few minutes ago was laughing about it, saying, "Oh yeah, as noisy as those guys were, I can't believe that buck even came in." So they do, and we don't want people to be noisy, but you can get away with quite a bit.
What's shocking about Mexico, and this must be when you hunt deer in Mexico, you're actually hunting their deer in their natural state.
Yeah.
It's private land, yes, but it's public in a sense that it's never been hunted, and the deer don't start moving till 9 a.m. 8:30, 9 a.m. Like in the States, it's you have that first hour from gray light till 7 a.m. Then they're gonna start bedding down.
Yeah.
Maybe 8:30. It gets 8:30. In Mexico, they don't even start moving till 8:30, 9 o'clock. And all of a sudden, oh, deer. I don't know. What do you attribute that to? It's so strange to me. We
rarely ever even see a deer come in before 8 o'clock. We've killed a few bucks over the years, but very few before 8 o'clock. I attribute it. My best guess is I think that the deer away from the water are moving and doing their thing, feeding and rutting and stuff, but away from the water. And so after, the first couple hours of light, they're now thirsty and they're ready to bed. So they go hit water on their way to bed, especially a lot of the does. They come in at 9, 10, 11 o'clock. And so they're going to their bedding areas and they pass by the water and they stop for a drink. The bucks, I think, they'll actually go bed down, and a lot of times they might be bedded down earlier, and at 11, 12 o'clock, they'll start coming to the water as more of a social call. than an actual watering
Especially during
call.
the rut. They're kind of seeing who's coming in hot.
Yeah.
It's a great place. To, same thing, reason we're hunting there, they're hunting there too.
Exactly. And so a lot of times I think the bucks come into the water, but we don't even see them. They'll come in maybe 150, 200 yards from the water hole, 300 yards, and they'll stand under a mesquite tree, and they won't move like we were talking about. They'll just stand there. And from our little enclosed pop-up ground blinds, he might be 300 yards this way, just standing there. And
you don't even know.
We don't even know that he's there. And some does or some other bucks will come into the water, and they have that sixth sense. They know what's going on around them. He knows that there's other deer in the vicinity. He can hear them or smell them or whatever. And so at some point, he'll circle back around the water to come check on who's been there, what they're doing, how many deer, hot does, whether he needs to, defend his territory against another buck or come breed a doe. They're there,
Yep.
but they're out of our sight, so they're just not nearby.
Even on our mountain ranch this year, though, it was like at 8:30, 9 o'clock, they really started moving. It was strange. And I thought you guys were crazy when they're like, what time are we getting up? Well, we'll leave here at light. I'm like, what? No, you need to be in the blind an hour before dark. They're like, no, trust me, you don't need to. Right? And the cool thing is, too, is hunting down there, you just get a comfy, get your comfy sweatshirt on. You just you bring a cooler in there, you set it for the day, cozy, and do it. Yeah. It's definitely not my favorite way to do it because I'm just too much of I want a glass. I want to look around.
Right.
But it is cool. It is cool. I'm going to come in. I can say, so kind of a funny story. We had on camera, on the game cameras, you get such a cycle of of seeing what's going on with them. Right. There was a Coues money that came in every day at 11 o'clock. And there's photos,
not anymore.
Not anymore. There's photos of this Coutamundi, and he's running my buck off the drinker. He chased it was a boar Coutamundi, ran my buck off the drinker. I'm like, I'm going to kill my buck. I'm going to kill that Coutamundi. So I shoot Chubbs, my buck.
Yep.
And I go back 2 days later and end up killing that Coutamundi. And I got a picture of both of them together. It was kind of cool. One thing I could say that you guys probably have the best collection of game camera footage of Coues deer probably in the world. I mean, arguably in the world. I don't know anybody who would have more.
I don't either.
Especially now that we've banned game cameras in Arizona.
Yeah.
You guys have, you can see a deer from spike to maturity on your cameras over the years.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might be 3 or 4 drinkers away, but you guys have footage where I can actually look at my deer from hey, here he is when he's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. Oh, he's peaking. Yeah. Oh, we missed the peak,
Yeah, if we can get pictures of a buck that is a recognizable buck, so there's distinguishing characteristics that he has, whether it's with his antlers, whether it's a split in his ear or something, and we can do that when he's 2.5 years old. We feel like we're pretty good at putting an age on a deer when he's 1, 2, or 3 years old. If we can do that, we can follow him through his lifespan a lot of times, and so we know when they're 4 and when they're 5, and we know when they're getting to that time frame where we better kill him or he's not going to be back.
Which is
next
that
year.
Probably 5 to 7 ranges when they really start peaking.
5 to 7.
4.5 to 7. They kind of start peaking out.
Yeah, we consider a 4.5-year-old buck a mature buck. We don't consider a 3.5-year-old buck a mature buck. And so what we're learning, the longer that Caden and Connor and myself hunt down there, the more we've discovered for ourselves that we don't want to kill deer until they're 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 years old, just because they're really more mature. They start
throwing an extra kicker in there, a little sticker, a little bit of extras, a little more mass.
Yeah, they start to really get big.
And their bodies start getting a lot bigger too. You notice that you go and shoot, even with mule deer, the buck my kid shot this year was probably 7 or 8 years old. He was just a cow elk. I mean, they just get bigger. It's like a man. I'm 40 years old now. I'm starting to put weight on. I'm I'm getting bigger. I'm getting thicker.
We get more roly-poly.
You get a little thicker, and these bucks just get thicker. Their necks get thicker. Their heads get bigger. And that's when you really start seeing how big these things are. Because I'll tell you what, it's hard to judge a Coues. You need to I spend hours looking at stuff trying to judge what a deer is, and I still get them wrong.
Well, and to throw a monkey wrench in it, you hunted with us 2 years ago on a desert ranch that has giant Coues deer bodies.
Yep.
And then this year we went to a mountain ranch that
100-pound bucks, 110-pound bucks versus 125-pound bucks.
correct, and it
looks
throws,
bigger.
It throws you
They
off.
look bigger.
It throws you off trying to determine antler size because you're using this commonality between the body sizes, but the body size from a desert to a mountain ranch are different. Desert ranches are generally going to be bigger bodied.
I find it strange too, like, especially, I mean, it's the same thing in this. I saw a little bit more of it in New Mexico this year. I saw the blend. It's the first time I ever saw a Coues deer running with mule deer in New Mexico this year.
Mm-hmm.
But like the two species don't really blend. Like, so if you go to a Coues area, like I know, like the place I love to hunt in Arizona, it's like there's a line I could draw where I guarantee you it's going to be like if I go above this altitude.
Yep.
There's going to be Coues deer. And it's like that 3,000 foot mark, or 3,300 foot mark. And then go below that, it's going to be mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really mix. It's like on your desert ranch, you've seen like one or two mule deer.
We had, I believe, one mule deer spike, and it was 4 or 5 years ago, and we've never seen another mule deer on these
Which
ranches.
is wild, because you could go 10 miles away, and they're high racking 240-inch mule deer.
Yeah. I believe it's said that the whitetail species, whether it's an eastern or a Texas or Canadian, northern whitetail species, it's a more dominant species than the mule deer. I think that's what biologists say.
I mean, I know you see them running deer off up in like Montana and stuff, like,
I've seen Coues deer, bucks, run off mule deer does, and a Coues deer buck and a mule deer buck are there's easy 70, 80 pounds difference, maybe 100 pounds difference.
Oh, more than that. I mean, gosh, that deer that Isaac shot was probably 250 pounds this year in Colorado.
Right.
But Arizona, they're not as big. They're not as big as Colorado.
Yeah, the desert species of
just
mule
not
deer.
As big.
But I've seen that with my own eyes, but that's just a few instances here and there. But I believe that whitetail deer are more dominant-minded deer than the mule deer, and they'll actually run them. I've seen whitetail on video on like YouTube run off elk.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. They don't mix, man. Like if you're finding, like if you have I had a mule deer tag this year, and I swore I kept running into Coues deer. It's like Murphy's Law, right? I want to go back and hunt mule or Coues deer in that unit so bad. But if you're finding Coues deer, you're probably not gonna find mule deer. You're finding mule deer, you're probably not gonna find Coues. It's like a great barometer. Like, okay, where am I at?
Yeah.
And typically, it's like for me, it's like you almost, at least in the States, not so much Arizona or Mexico, but like in the States, like if you're finding mule deer, you probably need to go a little bit higher. You'll find some Coues deer. And
generally,
like it's not, at least in Arizona, it's the lower stuff's going to be the mule deer, the higher stuff's going to be, which is weird because like it's so strange to me, like in Arizona, that the mule deer aren't up higher. It must be the Coues deer running them off. Because if you go to Colorado or Utah, you go high.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't make any sense to me that in Arizona, it's like the mule deer are low, the Coues deer are high.
Yeah.
And they don't mix. It could just be that the Coues deer are dickheads and they're running them off. I don't know. Like, get down to the desert where it's hotter.
Yeah.
'Cause it's cooler up there. There's more water up there. There's more, it's more everything. You see, like, there's more food up there. And those deer, man, they stay down on those mesquites and down low.
They're built to just be desert deer.
Desert deer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of them in the pines, but they're built to be a desert species of deer.
Yeah, and it is strange too. Like you don't have Coues up in the Kaipap.
There's
the
Grand Canyon separates them, so I don't know that the Coues deer could migrate across the Grand Canyon.
You think that's what it is?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen Coues deer as far north as Flagstaff, but I don't know why they don't go more north.
I know they got them on the Moglen Rim. They got them in 22. They got them down there. Do they have them in 8? You guys have them around in 8? Or Prescott?
Yeah. Okay. There's 8's a really tough unit to hunt for Coues deer because it's so thick, but there's a great genetic line of Coues deer in Unit 8.
It's a good bow hunting unit. Good archery unit, good August unit.
Yes, it's a unit that has to be scouted a lot in order to just learn where the pockets are. And if you're going to hunt it with archery, then you've got to, have a tree stand or somewhere that's drawing those deer in. And with the bands now on salt and feeding deer and trail cameras.
It's
really
got to be
tough.
glassing. You got to find the water. And you got to glass them. And
it's so hard to glass. It's a thick manzanita, scrub oak, junipers. Up top, there's pines. It's just really a tough unit to find Coues deer.
So here's something really cool. I always went to Africa. In Africa, everything's legal. You can kill whatever you see, and you can use whatever you want. They had the thermal binoculars.
Oh, yeah.
oh my gosh. Because right now it's like hazy out. It's cool. If it's cool weather, I can look at this mountain. There's a mountain next to it. It's all bushes. You can't even see on this mountain right now.
Yep.
And I can tell you where 15 deer on the mountain are. Man, if you could use thermals for Coues deer, it would be. And please, I'm not going to use thermals for Coues deer. I don't even own a pair of these binoculars. But my gosh, if you could use thermals, it's like a cheat code for like, there's deer there. Oh my gosh. Then you can find them with your binoculars. It was like, you could just find, you could tell what species it was with these things.
Yeah.
It was cool.
We've done some thermal hog hunting in Texas with some guys there. And, I mean, it's amazing. You can tell for the hogs, you know, if there's a hog with white spots or a white hog with black spots, I mean, you can see that in the thermal. And, you know, they don't show you color. They show you contrast and heat. But I don't know. I guess the white, you know, heats up to a different temperature than the black part of the hog.
At the middle of the day when the rocks are heating up, you can't use them anymore because the rocks get too hot.
Yeah, but to my knowledge, you're not allowed to take thermals to Mexico, so that's a
I'm wondering if you can throw
safety net.
binoculars, though. I'm curious on the binoculars. I know you can't have the scope, so I'm wondering if I can be throwing binoculars. But at the same time, I feel like I'd be cheating. Like, it was such a cheat code.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain, like I was telling Kate, so like in Mexico, you can hunt at night. I don't think I'd shoot a deer at night. Even though I could use light, you could bring lights down there. You could bring some lights in. If there's a buck that's coming in, you could use some green lights and do that, and you can hunt them. But it's like, man, like, I don't know. There's just certain things. Or there's like, what's it Leopold said? Like, there's ethics and laws.
Right.
And you're kind of like, what would your thought be on sitting water at night with green lights?
Well, so there's certain deer on our ranch that we call them ghost deer, and they come in at night or they don't come in very often, and those are the deer that me, Cade, Connor, we talk about, man, we wish there was a way to hunt them at night. We never have, and I don't know if it's cheating or not cheating, but there are a certain group of deer occasionally that would
it's tempting.
It's definitely
it's
tempting.
Legal.
Legalities aside, there's places that on the ranch that I'm certain we could go do it and we might be able to be successful, but then you sit for 12 hours a day. Do you really want to go home and have dinner and then go back out and sit again all night? I mean, you got to sleep at some point. So it just, I don't know how to make it work. Haven't fooled around too much more than talking to Cade and Connor about it, but
the green lights are pretty slick. I know we hunted together on a ranch this year looking for some oryx out of Mexico, and it was like, if we could have, I would have hunted those at night.
Yeah, I would definitely do that.
That would have been like, they only coming at night. They were eland and oryx on this ranch, and like, if we would have hunted at night, we would have killed them, right? And it was just like they just weren't coming in during the day, so we were on my camera every night. We'd get out of the blind, and an hour later they'd be on camera that night. And I'm like, man, if we had green lights, we could definitely shoot these. We were hunting with our bows. Could have got them.
They have those green and red hog lights that slow glow. They turn on, not necessarily the ones that are attached to your rifle or whatever, but you put them on a T-post and they slowly come up to the green or red light. They use them in Texas a lot.
Yeah, and then you could turn the light on your gun and get them.
And get them. We could do that with the oryx and eland on that ranch, but never done it with a Coues deer yet. I don't know. Maybe someday.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think about it. I'm like, man, there's some deer, but I'm like, I just want to give them the chance.
At some point, you got to sleep too.
You got to sleep.
You know. So.
All right, that was a fun pod. We always end with a hunt story. Want to tell us a hunt story?
Which hunt story?
Any hunt story, man.
Any hunt
story.
Give me
a hunt story, man. It could be you shooting a squirrel when you were 6. I don't care. Or it could be you shooting the 130-inch deer a couple years ago. Give me any hunt story, man.
So that big buck that I killed a couple of years ago was a buck that we had one of my buddies hunting him the first year we found him, and we figured he was somewhere in that 108, 110-inch range, and my buddy sat for him for 9 consecutive days for 12 hours a day, and he never had the opportunity. He ghosted out on us that year, and my buddy never got him killed.
108 hours. 108 hours you sat for this deer.
You're a math guy, aren't you? I can't do math that fast or that good, but we'll call it 108 hours. The next year, Cade and I were out setting up trail cameras in November, and we had just set this drinker, and we were on our way to the next stop, and we're riding down this 2-track road on the ranch, in my side-by-side, and just out from the right side going across to the left side in front of us, maybe 15 yards, runs this giant buck. And it was huge. It's not the biggest buck I've ever seen, but it was a giant buck. And I literally put my foot on the brake and stopped, and Cade and I, there was this moment that neither of us could say anything. And we looked at each other, and finally we broke the silence, and that was a giant. And we had a conversation about that buck, and we actually turned around and went and put more trail cameras back on the water hole.
Oh, the whole road's lined up now.
Yeah, we went and set more trail cameras up there, and all of the water holes in the areas, we went and we added trail cameras to it. So that's in November. We came back in December, and obviously we go to those areas in that vicinity, and we never found the buck. And I mean, there were some distinct features on this buck that we were looking for that I knew if I saw this buck that I would recognize him again in a heartbeat. So we were kind of disappointed that we go back in December, and that buck isn't on any trail camera anywhere nearby, and so we were bummed. We hunted through December, and we came back, and I think Cade was sitting one water hole, and I was sitting another water hole, and 2 or 3 days into our January hunt, this buck appears on one of the water holes. We call it Skunk Tank, but this buck appears on that camera. I see it. I immediately recognize the two kickers coming off the G2. I said, Cade, I got our buck. We're both excited. So Cade, we make the decision that he's going to sit that buck. He and I saw the buck together, so it's fitting that one of us goes to hunt it. We decide Cade is going to go hunt this buck. We go and...
At this point, how big is this buck?
We believe he's 125 inches.
Okay.
And we take Cade's ground blind and we move it to where this buck is coming in. And we set up the ground blind, and it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30. And I say, Cade, do you want to just sit here the rest of the day and I'll come back tonight and get you? And he's like, no, I'll just go back tonight and I'll sit it the rest of the day. I'll sit at the rest of the hunt. We said, okay. So he went back there tomorrow or the next day, and when he did, he pulled the card. We were there at like 2:30. The buck was in at 3:30 that next day. Cade was not. He did not have his butt in the chair, which is what we say. And so obviously he lost that opportunity to kill that buck. He hunted it, I want to say, another 6 days for that hunt, and that year never got it killed. I was bringing a group of hunters later on that month after we were done. I went and sat it for another 3 or 4 days. Never had the opportunity to kill it.
This is now becoming a 3-year buck.
This is the second year.
But you're going on to year 3 now.
Now that year is over. We come back the next year, and we put trail cameras in all the same places, hoping to find this buck. And he was at the exact same tank. He was there early. He was there in November when we first set out the trail cameras. And I sat him the year before, or Cade sat him the year before, and so it was my turn to sit the buck, and Cade had another buck that he, in fact, it was the buck that he killed this year that he went and hunted, and I sat for him in December. I sat him 6 days in December, and I want to say on day 3, I don't know what happened. I don't fall asleep in the ground blind, but I must have been distracted, because on the evening of day 3, I pulled the trail camera cards. I went back to the ranch, and I looked at it, and the buck passed in between me and the water hole while I was sitting it, and I never saw the buck. So something happened that I was distracted, and I don't believe he spent any time there, but he walked across, and I missed the opportunity in December.
And that's when you realized it was going to be a quick shot for this buck.
Yes.
That's when we realized this buck is not going to give us the hour of walking in slow and standing.
Correct. And so I come back in January, back to the same tank. We have more pictures of him. Day 5 in January, I look up. It's actually the evening. We kill very few deer in the evening time, but it does happen. I looked up and there's a doe about an hour before dark, and she's coming into the water. She's already at the edge of the water. This is a cement drinker. We call them Bevendettos. She's right up next to it, and I thought, okay, well, this is a good scenario. He could come sneaking in, which a second later I glance up and a buck stepped out of the edge of the brush and stopped. All I can see is his head, and through the bushes I can see his leg up to his chest. I'm like, okay. Throw up my binos, it's him. And I'm like, okay, well, now I got to wait for him to take a step. And this is all going on very quickly in my mind, but it dawned on me pretty quick that he wasn't coming there to drink. He was following his doe in. He was watching his doe drink, and he wasn't going to take another step closer to the water, I didn't feel. He watched his doe. I felt like as soon as she was done watering, she was going to turn around and walk out the same way that she had just come in. So my choice was to shoot him through the bushes or don't get a shot on him at all. So I looked through the scope in my rifle, and there was a perfect little clearing of branches. He's only 60 yards away. Yep. There's a perfect little clearing of branches and cholla cactus right to his vitals. And I have it on video. I turned the video camera on and I put the shot right through. I didn't see any branches or cholla cactus fly. I saw a flash of movement as I hit him, and he just turned and flopped on the ground, and I was able to harvest the biggest Coues deer that I've ever killed.
So. Where did he grow? He grossed over 130.
He grossed just under 130.
Oh, he grossed under.
Yeah, he's 129 and I believe 4/8. In fact, he's at the Boone and Crockett Club convention in Missouri right now. Yesterday, I just got the email from them. He got panel scored because he's one of the largest typicals killed in the last 5-year scoring panel. So they shipped him to the show in Missouri. We'll go. The show doesn't take place until later on this summer, which my wife and I will go to. But he's been panel scored, and I haven't looked to open the email yet to see what he scores.
You don't want to know what he came in at?
Honestly, scores are scores, and it's fun and everything to talk to your buddies about. I really don't care. He's the coolest buck.
You have to SCI score him. They'll give you a higher score.
Yeah, give me a higher score.
Get an SCI score. The Boone and Crockett guys, they're going to drag that down to like 123 or something.
We can go score shopping for him. But, but yeah, so ultimately it doesn't matter to me what he scored. It would be cool if he was a 130-inch buck, but he's not. He's a 129
He's not going to grow
at
Boone and Crockett, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think he, if anything, it doesn't matter.
They might get you a few inches off of him.
I don't think they'll take inches off of him, but it's fun to say that I have a buck that is going that high in the book, or that. That buck right there is every bit of a 400-inch elk. More than a 400-inch elk. It's more than a 400-inch elk. When you consider the fact that he's a typical 3-point, a typical 3x3, I probably will never see a bigger typical 3x than this buck. He's a giant. He's a beautiful buck. He's got mass. He's got length. He's got width. He's got everything.
He's got it all
you could ever want, except he doesn't have the last couple of eighths of an inch to get him up over 130. But who cares?
He probably never would have.
he
definitely ain't gonna now.
He won't now. But he's on the wall. But definitely fun. It's really cool. That story is important to me because Cade and I worked together for that buck. We both saw him. Cade had an opportunity. I had an opportunity. I'd have been just as happy if Cade killed him. The buck that Cade ended up going after, he didn't kill that year, but it's the buck that Cade went back to this year and killed this year. So it turned out to be a really cool
saga
circle story.
I was pretty shocked how much work you guys put into these deer. You're not just sitting water and killing things. It's work. But man, I'll tell you what, I love hunting with Mad Hunts. I love the boys. I love the dad. The whole family's involved. Right now I've got both wives here, grandkids for Mad Hunts, family operation. Mad Hunts on Instagram, Mad Hunts on YouTube. What else, you guys? Where do we find you guys? How do we book hunts with you guys?
Our website is madhunts.com. Cade and Connor have Instagram accounts, and if you know me,
OnlyFans only. He's got a good OnlyFans, a good foot account.
I don't do social media, but if you go to the website at www.madhunts.com, that has my phone number. It has Cade and Connor's Instagrams, and you're welcome to call, text, email, Instagram, however we hook up through social media.
Go book a hunt, DIY hunts in Mexico. It got hundreds of thousands of acres now. Go get a hunt booked before. You probably got to get it booked by July, right, to really get down there.
Yeah, we got to start doing gun permits in end of August, beginning of September. But we offer do-it-yourself hunts. We offer a semi-guided hunt to help you learn the process of coming in and out of Mexico and learning the paperwork and all of that. And we've got mountain ranches, which you've hunted both now, the mountain ranches and the desert ranches. We've got a lot of archery guys that are starting to go and starting to capture this idea of sitting water, but we're picking up more and more mountain ranches as well. And
it's still relatively affordable. You're gonna get all into it for less than $5,000. Something around, maybe a little bit of high side. That's gun permits, everything. You go down to Mexico and have the adventure of a lifetime, and get some tacos. Have some old Mexican lady just making you food over a stove. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a good time, man. So, highly recommend Mad Hunts. Highly recommend going to do it. Thanks, Tim. Let's do it again. It was fun. Anytime, dude.
Right on. Thank you.
Later.